Joining us on the Chiefs Zone podcast right now, a guy who I've been interacting with for a while on social media, on Twitter. Great follow on Twitter, Benjamin Allbright. Give him a follow at Allbright NFL with Mile High Sports. Been covering Denver sports there for 5 years. Very good sports-minded guy, and happy to have him on. We'll be talking some Chiefs and Broncos here. First time on the podcast, Benjamin Allbright. Thanks for joining us. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Good. Like I said, I know we've been talking for a while, and it's good to finally get you on. I know you're always providing commentary, not just on the Broncos or Denver sports, but a lot of things out there with the NFL, and it's always good seeing your thoughts out there. So again, if anyone wants to give Benjamin a follow, it's at Allbright NFL on Twitter. Let's get right into it, because this is a pretty big matchup for both teams. The winner of this match could come away with first place in the AFC West after Week 4. So obviously a lot on the line, despite Denver coming off a loss. And that's actually what I wanted to get into first. They beat Seattle and Oakland in the first couple of weeks, but they're coming off that loss against Baltimore on the road. Well, what is the vibe like with the Broncos right now, coming off that first loss of the season?
Well, it's a little bit disappointed. They felt like they could win, that Baltimore game. They felt like that was a game that was a game they could have, would have, and should have had, and penalties just kind of cost them, that game in the end. They had several chances. They've been a team that's been very good in the fourth quarter, very good at coming back, after not getting off to hot starts, in the first couple of games. But they've been a team that's been very good at coming back, and, they feel like that they could have won that game, and they're disappointed they let a winnable game get away.
Yeah, I want to get more into the Denver Broncos with you in just a moment, but I do want to kind of get your perception of Patrick Mahomes and the job he's done so far, and just the excitement and the exuberance in Kansas City, and the talk that's been around in the past couple of weeks. I'm curious from your standpoint, and if you can maybe represent what some of the other people in Denver sports media, as well as Denver sports fans, what's the thought of Patrick Mahomes like so far over there?
Well, I think everybody thinks he's absolutely been, a star early on. I always thought he'd be a star in this league. I just didn't think it happened this fast. He's been, just absolutely dominant over the first couple of weeks of the season. I think everybody's seen that. The fact that he's scoring all these touchdowns, he's got, no turnovers as far as that kind of stuff goes. And, as a young quarterback, it's kind of shocking to see somebody with that steady of a hand this early on in his career. It's got to be disappointing to a lot of, Kansas City fans, Denver fans, because, they're a team that drafted a quarterback in the first round a couple of years ago as well, and that didn't pan out for them. But to watch a division rival, a young quarterback project come out and do very, very well, that's got to be bitterly disappointing for Denver fans.
I've got to ask you, and this is something that I've been discussing a little bit, do you think that, and I remember when the Chiefs traded up, everyone thought in that moment that it was going to be Deshaun Watson, and people were shocked that it was not Deshaun Watson, and I think Stephen A. Smith and a few other national guys out there criticized Andy Reid for that, but you look at everything right now, do you think, even looking at how Trubisky was taken before Mahomes, who Mahomes, by the way, already surpassed Trubisky in career touchdowns, do you think that sometime down the road, the whole Trubisky being drafted before Mahomes could be compared to Alex Smith being taken before Aaron Rodgers?
It could be, very much could be. I always had Pat Mahomes as my guy that year. I knew the Chiefs were going to take him, or they wanted him anyway. He was the top quarterback on their board. I could tell you that they were very heavily invested in Pat Mahomes. It had nothing to do with Trubisky, for Kansas City. There were several teams that were very interested in Pat Mahomes. I can tell you that if the Chiefs had not traded up for him, the Browns were going to take him at 12. That's why they traded up, because they knew the Browns were very interested in him. So, there was a lot of interest in Pat Mahomes around the league. That particular quarterback class was kind of split. Even though the Texans ended up taking Deshaun Watson, he was the number 3 quarterback on their board. So.
Just a little bit more on Patrick Mahomes, and actually kind of going back to Denver for a bit, and more specifically Denver's defense. Chris Harris, I believe he was on Fox Sports Radio, and he praised Mahomes, but he also made a comment saying that Mahomes has yet to go up against a defense like us, referring to the Broncos. I'm curious how you think Mahomes in this high-powered Kansas City offense stacks up against Denver's defense when you've got Von Miller, who's co-leading the league in sacks so far, and several other good players on that front seven.
Well, there are good players on this team, but unfortunately, it's a team that's really damaged and dinged up in the secondary, and it's struggling right now. Pac-Man Jones, Tremaine Brock both have injuries. Isaac Yadam is very young, so the nickel corner and dime corner are problems for this team. They've got some decent safety play, but it's just one of those things where you're lacking bodies, and for a Kansas City team that likes to spread you out, go multiple receiver sets, it can be really tough to try to defend that with Chris Harris, Bradley Roby, who's kind of just a guy, and then you've got Yadam as the nickel corner, who's very inexperienced. So,
what's your assessment of Case Keenum through 3 games so far, and considering the contract? Because I know that's been something that, and again, I know everyone's quick to judge, and you have very little opportunities to prove yourself, and it kind of seems like a lot of Denver fans are unhappy with the Case Keenum signing. Do you think it's a little too early, or do you think the criticism's just right?
I think it's unfair to hate on that this quick. The guy's led 2, fourth quarter game-winning drives to come back in 3 games. He put him in a position to do it in game 3, and they have just holding penalties galore and couldn't seem to capitalize on it despite him getting the ball down there. So yeah, he's turned the ball over a little bit. There's some concern with that. Specifically with, the interceptions down the seam route, that's something I would be very worried about or very cautious about if I'm a Denver fan. But the idea that you should give up on Case Keenum this early is absolutely ludicrous.
What about the offensive guys like Emmanuel Sanders, Demaryius Thomas? Those are guys who've been in Denver for a while and have worked with a lot of different kinds of quarterbacks. Are you seeing them keep patient and even going as far as maybe trying their best to work with Case Keenum and trying to help him out for as long as they can, given their experience here, or rather there in Denver for you guys?
Well, absolutely. I mean, Case Keenum is the best quarterback the Broncos have had since Peyton Manning was healthy. So it's the idea that they're in any way down on him would be incorrect. They're very high on Case. They're trying their best, and they want to win games. Emmanuel Sanders has a great connection with Case so far. So they're doing their best.
I'm curious, in the short amount of years that Vance Joseph has been in Denver, what's your takeaway on the job that he's done with the Broncos?
It's been some hit and some miss. He's kind of a player's coach. He motivates pretty well, but the problem is tactically, I don't think he's up to par. He's been a guy that struggled with in-game decision making, way too aggressive, taking timeouts at the end of the half, and ultimately costing his team points. It's hit or miss with him.
A couple of questions left with Benjamin Allbright of Mile High Sports joining us here on the Chiefs Zone podcast. Benjamin, I'm curious to know, what are the keys to this game for both teams, and what do you think would be the biggest difference maker?
Well, I think the key for Denver is going to be trying to make sure they get to the quarterback quickly, don't allow them to get set up, and, don't allow them to get those bunch, rub route pick plays off that Andy Reid loves, stymie the young decision maker, force the young quarterback to second guess himself on things, and make sure you've got good coverage as far as that goes. You're going to have to, get after the quarterback, play tight coverage. And then you need to score points on offense. No penalties, no holding penalties from the tackles, which has had a problem with that dating back to last year.
What's your score prediction on this game?
Oh, I think Kansas City blows them out. I think it's going to be a 38-24 game.
Are you the only one that thinks that, or are there a lot of people in Denver media that think that as well?
I couldn't tell you. I think most people are. I think Denver media is trying to be cautiously optimistic about the game. I'm not. I look at this and I see a Kansas City team that, unless it shoots itself in the foot, is going to run them out of the stadium.
Very interesting stuff. Benjamin Allbright. Follow him on Twitter at AllbrightNFL. Benjamin, like I said, we've been in touch for a while. We've interacted for quite some time, and this is the first time we've had a chance to talk on the phone. So great to finally have you on the podcast, and hopefully we can connect down the road again.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Thanks, Benjamin. Take care.